Good afternoon and welcome. This is a joint meeting of the Police and Firefighter Pension Funds of the Village of Wilmette, being held on Thursday, January 21st, 2021 at 3:30 in the afternoon. First item of business is the roll call. On fire, roll call first.
Mr. Canning.
Here.
Ms. Malloy.
Here.
Mr. Mitchell.
He wasn't going to be joining us.
Oh, he's not. Mr. Grajewski here, and Mr. Weglars is also absent temporarily.
Okay, so there's a quorum for fire. Over to police.
Hey, Pat, can you do the roll call, please?
All right, roll call. Mr. Farina?
Here.
Mr. Kenzel?
Here.
Mr. Collins here. Mr. Paulson?
Here.
And absent is Mr. Sokolnik, Assistant Secretary.
So we have
I
a.
think we're going to want to redo fire again because it looks like Jason, I think, just joined or tried to join.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
Okay, then, well, let the record reflect that Jason has joined the meeting, and we do have a quorum for fire. Next item on the agenda is we have a statement to be read into the record because we are doing this meeting remotely due to the ongoing pandemic. So if you would wait a brief moment, I will go through this statement for the record. This meeting is being conducted remotely via Microsoft Teams. For those watching this video in the future, effective June 12th, 2020, Public Act 101640 enacted the Government Emergency Administration Act, which makes permanent changes to Illinois' Open Meetings Act. Under new Section 7 sub E of the Open Meetings Act, public bodies may now conduct remote public meetings by audio or video conference without a quorum physically present when the governor or director of the Illinois Department of Public Health has issued a disaster declaration related to public health concerns. Today's meeting is being broadcast live on our local cable access channel 6. It is also being broadcast on the internet on YouTube Live, and the URL for that is www.youtube.com/user/Village of Wilmette, all one word, /live. If you'd like to participate in the meeting, you may use the Microsoft Teams app on any device for free. No sign-in is required. The link to join each meeting is posted on the website calendar at www.wilmette.com/calendar. Today's meeting will be archived on the village's website as we do with our other televised public meetings. A remote meeting obviously requires a different mechanic for public participation, so to ensure that our residents, business owners, and other interested parties have the opportunity to participate in the meeting. Accordingly, we have solicited public comment prior to the start of the meeting via email. If you send an email to publiccomment@wilmette.com prior to the start of the meeting, our staff, today will be Alex, will read the email during the public comment portion of our agenda. If members of the public who are watching the broadcast would like to participate during our designated public comment periods, you may submit your comments through YouTube Live at the appropriate time, and a member of the village staff will read your comment to the police and fire pension boards. All comments to the two pension boards will be recorded in the meeting minutes as we typically do. Now, everyone will have joined the meeting today is muted. When it is time for public comment, those joining us with the Teams client can toggle their mute status by clicking on the microphone icon on the meeting toolbar. Those joining us by audio conference dial-in can toggle their mute status by pressing *6. Only attendees can unmute themselves. No one can unmute another attendee. And just a reminder, the public comment may also be provided by emailing publiccomment@wilmette.com or through the village's YouTube live stream. Now, for today's meeting, the pension boards each received a packet of agenda materials. Today's packet is 321 pages of materials that all the members of the pension board have reviewed. These materials are also posted on wilmet.com so that residents and other interested parties can review the very same packet and see the materials we will be reviewing and discussing today. So feel free to do so as we get ready to proceed with the meeting. Now I will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is public comment. Alex, is there anyone here who would like to make a public comment?
We have not received any public comment at the publiccomment@wilmet.com email address, and currently there are no public comments on YouTube Live.
Okay. Is there anyone on Microsoft Teams who would like to make a public comment? Okay. Seeing no one, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes. We'll start with police.
Chris, I have a question. Do we need, I made a mistake in some of the outline numbers, the last two. Does that need to be amended or through amendment, or how's? It's not a substantive change, it's more of a
I'm
outline.
sorry, which document?
Our minutes, the police minutes.
Here, I'll share the screen so that way we can look at it. So Pat, are you talking about how you start your minutes? This part here?
No, I'm talking about to the bottom where it outlines, jumps to go to new old business instead of being,
Right here?
yeah, instead of going to 10, it went to 1, and then the adjournment is 2. So those should be actually 10 and 11, I believe.
I would just move to amend, and then move to amend, make the amendment, have the amendment adopted, and then move to approve the amended minutes.
Okay, I can do that. All right.
Okay.
All right, so can we first make a motion to amend the minutes from the police special meeting on November 16th, adding a 10 and 11 as indicated by Officer Collins? We have a motion for that?
Collins, motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Second, Kinzel.
Okay, second, and then all in favor? Aye.
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 We gotta do roll call.
Oh,
We gotta do
forgot.
roll call.
Farina, aye.
Collins.
Kinzel, aye.
Kinzel, aye. Collins, aye.
Paulson, aye.
Okay, so the amendment passes. Okay, so now I'd like a motion to approve the recently edited special meeting November 16th minutes from the special meeting from November 16th, 2020. Can I get a motion?
Motion, Kinzel.
A second?
I'll second it. Paulson.
Any further modifications, adjustments, clarifications, or comments? Hearing none, can we get a vote? Farina, aye.
Kinzel, aye.
Collins, aye.
Paulson, aye.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. Over to you, Chris.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the fire special joint meeting held November 16th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, it's been moved. Second, Melinda.
Yes, second.
Okay, any comments, corrections, clarifications, modifications, or amendment? Seeing none, all in favor? I'm sorry, strike that. Dave, please call the roll.
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Ms. Malloy,
Aye.
Mr. Weglars,
Aye.
Mr. Krajewski, aye.
Okay, so the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is the review of the 2021 Joint Pension Board quarterly meeting schedule. Melinda, do you want to handle that?
Sure. So, folks, this is the same one that we proposed at our last meeting. There have been no adjustments to this. Do I have any questions? Okay.
Then moving on to the next item, which is somewhat important, more important, I think, than the calendar, is what is going to be going on in terms of the trustees' terms expiring in 2021.
So the highlighted individuals are the ones who are whose terms are expiring in May of 2021. So you could see on the fire side, it is Chris, myself, Dave Krajewski, and Mark Mitchell. On the police side, it's Jeff, Pat, and Marty.
All right. And Melinda, do you want to talk about the election?
Sure. In both the calendar that we had before, and there's a note here that talks about per statute, it's the third Monday in April. So the election really should occur by April 19th. Those individuals who are appointed members, if you could let me know if you are still interested in serving on the board so that I could pass that on to the manager's office and the board president, we could then start that process.
Okay, any questions? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the next item, which is police pension membership changes. Dave?
Dave, you're muted, sorry.
Melinda, on those things, did you want answers from Kenzo, myself, and Marty right now?
No, you, yourself and Marty don't need to answer because that's going to be part of an election. But Jeff, either he can send me an email or I will reach out to him to find out if he is still interested in being an appointed trustee.
Okay.
Okay, so page 15 and 16, we do have a new member, Sam Walker, retroactive to August 2019. Do we need to approve this, Melinda?
Yes, you need to take a roll call vote.
Okay, so a motion to approve the inclusion of Sam Walker into the pension board, or into the as a new member.
Motion, Kinzel.
A second, please.
Paulson will second it.
Okay, and Pat, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Farina,
Yes, aye.
Mr. Kenzo,
Aye.
Mr. Collins, yes. Mr. Paulson.
Aye.
Motion
Okay, so
carried.
the motion passes approval of new member. I don't think we have anything else we need to do there, Melinda, right?
No, we just had one little information piece that we are still trying to reach out to the individual who left and is entitled to a refund of their contributions. So we are still working on that.
Okay.
We have tried to reach out to that person.
What about approval of annual increase?
Yes.
Yeah, what was up next? So police, you're still on that.
Oh, okay. Where was that?
That's,
Oh.
census data.
Hey, Dave, can you get to your email? I kind of sent you late.
Yeah, I got it. Hold on a second.
Page 3.
Yeah, I know. It's on my screen and it's page 3. Okay.
So just so individuals know, as you're taking a perusal of this, remember at the start of the year, all pensioners are entitled to their 3% increase. That's what this sheet is letting you know. When their pension payment goes out at the end of this month, there will be a letter that is sent to them along with a 1099-R informing them of their increase and showing them the calculation. So that is our standard practice.
Okay. Thank you, Melinda. So can I get a motion to approve the annual increase for the 2021 year?
Motion Collins.
Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Second, Kinzel. I don't know who got the motion, but
I did the first. Kenzo will be the second.
Okay. Roll call, please, Pat.
Mr. Farina,
Aye.
Mr. Kenzo,
aye.
Mr. Collins, aye. Mr. Paulson.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Over to
Okay,
you.
next item is the approval of the annual increase for the fire pension pensioners for calendar year 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion.
Okay, moved by Melinda, seconded by Jason. Dave, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Ms. Malloy,
Aye.
Mr. Weglars,
Aye.
Mr. Rajewski, aye.
Okay, so the motion carries. The annual increase is approved. Next item on the agenda is the Village of Wilmette firefighters pension fund disbursement other than pension benefits. It's on page 20 of your packet. Having had a moment to review that, can I get a motion to approve the disbursements?
So moved.
Moved by Melinda, seconded by Jason. Any questions on the items? Hearing none, Dave, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Mrs. Malloy,
Aye.
Mr. Weglars,
Aye.
Mr. Krajewski, aye.
And that motion carries. Over to police.
Okay, page 21 of your packet. Can we make a motion to approve the disbursements of 25,956.46 for the fourth quarter of 2020?
Motion,
I'll make-
Tinsel.
Okay,
Second.
Jeff. Okay,
I'll second.
second. Okay, great. Pat, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Friana,
Aye.
Mr. Kinzel,
Aye.
Mr. Collins, aye. Mr. Paulson,
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the bank activity report. Melinda?
So again, the first 9 months of the year we have covered, so you are seeing all 12 months. I think the item I'd like you to focus in on is in December, working with Tom, we made the transfer out of some of our investment earnings into North Shore. We did that so that we could be in compliance with our required allocation of no more than 65% invested in equities. This is now going to influence our discussion that we have on the next page. But before I move over there, are there any questions anyone would like me to answer about the balances at North Shore? I think you're also going to see that there's a typo here.
Yeah.
That the ending balance is 12/31/2020, not 2018. That was a typo there. And thank you to the gentleman who pointed that out to me. Do I have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will then move over to the cash flows. So as I said, we made movements out of our investment earnings into North Shore so that we could be in compliance. What I've done here now is showed you a projected cash flow for 2021 for both of the funds. And I've highlighted an item for discussion today to say, this is an amount that we should start talking about in terms of making a decision about transferring it out of North Shore and back into one of our investments. So with that being said, I've put an idea out there. I've had a discussion with Tom. So if you wouldn't mind, I would like Tom to make some comment about this and then we can answer some more questions.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Melinda and I have looked at the balances at the end of January, and that the excess cash from the current allocation they have, the only place it would go would be the fixed income. And of the fixed income managers you have three separate strategies. You have Weaver, Barksdale, which is 60% corporates and 40% governments. Then you have SKBA Flex, which is corporates and and governments, and that's like a 5-year, 6-year maturity. Then you have the Max Flex, which is pretty much short term, maybe 1 to 3 years. From the perspective of where our firm, and if you look at information, we think that I think if we moved money, we'd move to the shorter term bond portfolio. That based upon not that rates are going up tomorrow, but certainly what's happening as far as the activity of money supply and the supply chain for product, there is concern about inflation, and we'd rather be short term than longer term. And so any money is moved from this account, I would suggest we go to the Max Flex, which is has the assignment is to move wherever rates are going to go to and get the best position for that. And mostly, though, they've been in the 1 to 3 year maturities. So that's.
So the other item that we were talking about, and I think we just lost Chris for a moment, and I saw him in the waiting room, and I just allowed him back in. So Chris, are you still with us?
Yep.
Great. Was really the dollar value. So this was the idea that I had that we would be moving $1.4 million out of fire and $1.1 million. And I did that by looking at what our balances might be over the next several months, knowing that we're going to meet again in April. Tom had thrown out an idea of maybe you want to give yourself a little bit more cushion than what we're doing right now. So we were toying that. Then the idea became instead we would move $1.3 million out of fire, so that our low point would be roughly $340,000. Again, depending on how monies are coming in and the dollars are going out the door, and that we would make a similar adjustment with police. That instead of moving out $1.1 million, that we would move $1 million. So that again, just looking at where the balance might drop. I can tell you that you and it wouldn't surprise me that you've seen in the paper that the county is again going to delay the penalty date on property tax payments. So that happened with our second bill in 2020. They are going to do that with the first bill in 2021. So the due date for the property tax payment is still going to be the same. It still should be March 1, but the penalty date is going to get moved back until May. Now, what we saw happen, if you look at the cash flows, even with the second bill and the penalty date being moved, there was a slight delay in the collection of some of the property tax dollars, but it really was not significant because escrows still release on the due date of the bill. They don't hold it back for the penalty date. So where the projection is, for example, with fire, that we expect to get roughly $1.5 million in by the end of March, some of that actually might phase into April, but really the significant portion of it, we still should receive it in March. But there is going to be some delay as people are able to hold off their payments because of the penalty date. But we will be meeting again if we are, before or right after March. We'll be meeting in April, and we can sort of look at our balances again if we need to make some other adjustments. So I'm comfortable if we decide to move with the numbers here. If we want to be a little bit more conservative, we can make $100,000 adjustment for each of the funds. I'll open it up to discussion.
Melinda, it's David. At least on the police side, we still have a little bit of a deficit in August, right? I mean, I guess we can move the money at our July meeting is what you're thinking. But if we left, 150 extra, we'd probably be okay through the end of the year, right? And then we have a cushion. I mean, it's not like the interest on, 150 grand is going to make any difference.
You're correct. What might happen, even in both the funds, what might happen in July, really, I figure right now we're probably not trying to solve what's going to happen at that point in time because we're going to be meeting in April. So really in April, when we get a better sense of how the tax dollars are coming in and how some of these other expenses are occurring, we'll get a better sense of what our deficit could be going forward and then make some decisions there. Another just cautionary item out there, and you might have picked up on it on the material that we were reading today, is that especially with fire, there is some discussion that with the consolidation occurring, that they are looking to do this potentially sometime this summer. It could be this summer or this fall. With police, they haven't come out and made that sort of projection yet. Instead, they have just said that they want to start moving forward. So I think when we meet in April, we're going to have some more information surrounding what potentially might be happening with the consolidation and can make some decisions at that point in time as well. So I think we're just going to have a lot more facts than what we do right now to make maybe some different decisions at that time.
Okay, I'm fine with 100 grand. Rest of police, extra 100.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Do we need
So
a motion? Do we need a motion for that? Or anybody else? I'm sorry.
just so you know, David, we'll need a motion, and then we'll need the decision on which fixed income portfolio to move it into.
Melinda, I have a question on that. Were we balanced 65-35 at year's end, or it looked like it's December 31st? It looks like we were quite a bit off. We didn't do a rebalance at the year end?
No, actually we did. And just so you know, later on in the presentation, it's actually on page 131. We can see what we look like. In fact, I'll just jump to that right away. So Tom's firm already, just so you know, we were almost spot on. Here's what you can see the difference was. We were slightly over, if you want to call it, over by $1,000 in fire and $28,000 with the police fund. So Tom and I had worked starting in, kind of the second week in December. We gave ourselves another week before we made the movement and took into consideration what we thought was happening with the market as it continued to climb, and made the decision about that, the dollar movement out of our investment earnings into North Shore Bank so that we can get ourselves as close to the 65% as possible.
So I guess my question is,
Dave,
I'm sorry.
no, just say
I was curious as to why does it have to go into fixed income if we are balanced currently?
well, it would be over any change we would be adding money and increasing our allocation over the state limit of 65%. So if you put more money, if you took this money and put it into equity, you'd be at 67%, back up above that. And so I would not, you wouldn't want to do that. That's would violate what state statute says.
Isn't the idea you can only grow through appreciation?
Well, right, yeah. If you like get 65% and and the market goes up 20%, you're going to be over allocated. You don't have to do anything then.
Right.
You don't have to be bounced back.
And the market's already up, what, 3.5% year to date, right? So we're probably way out of, we're probably ready a couple percent over.
Yeah, I mean,
Right, so we're probably already sitting at 67%. So yeah, it'd be hard to add more.
Okay, yeah, that was my question. If we can't add money, if it's just the appreciation of the assets that allow us to go over, that makes sense.
right.
So Tom, you recommended Max Flex, did you say?
Well, yeah, I'm Max Flex is the fixed income portfolio that has bonds that have they're all treasuries and they're shorter term maturities.
Please, I'm fine with that. If anybody has a different thought, let me know.
Dave or Jason?
That works. I like Max Flex, whatever Tom thinks.
I agree with that.
Okay, on the police side, then Melinda, we just need to make a hearing, no arguments there, just to move $1 million out from the bank to the Max Flex.
Correct.
So 1 million even for us, correct?
Yes, I think that's what you guys have agreed on. So
Okay.
I think you guys need the motion and then the roll call vote.
$1 million from the bank.
From North
Yeah.
Shore.
North Shore. Okay, so let me see if I can craft this here. So I'd like a motion to move $1 million cash from North Shore to the Max Flex fund. I guess that's a fund.
Motion. Kinzel.
Jeff first, a second.
Also.
Collins seconded. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Farina,
Aye.
Mr. Kinzel,
Aye.
Mr. Collins, aye. Mr. Paulson.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. Over to you, Chris.
Okay, Melinda, do you want to make the motion for police or for fire?
Yep, I motion that we move $1,300,000 from our North Shore account into SKBA Max account.
Okay, Melinda made the motion, Jason seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dave, please call the roll.
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Ms. Malloy,
Aye.
Mr. Weglars,
Aye.
Mr. Gajewski, aye.
Okay, so the motion carries. Okay, we now move over to the fourth quarter investment results. Over to you, Tom.
Okay, so let's go to, I think it's 63 of, yeah, page 63 would be the fire pension performance report.
Yep.
Okay, all right. So just to follow along with Dave Gajewski's question, we don't include North Shore in our performance report or our asset allocation. So on page 64, you can see, we're way over allocated equities, but including North Shore, again, as Melinda stated, we're on task there. So, and then if you look at so we're comfortable with the large allocation, or not the large, but the overall allocation of being 30% fixed income, 69% equity, and that we've got that cash position that acts like a fixed income. So we're actually, if we look at overall, we're closer to 32% fixed income. But on the bottom of the page, it's more granular, and what our firm is looking at in reference to this environment is that there's better value in the smaller cap area, the mid cap area, and international stocks. And they have not had the appreciation that the large cap stocks have had, though the small caps have recently picked up some steam, and it's reflected in your holdings, which the target 7%. Right now we're at 8.89%, and that's over allocation that we're comfortable with, and we think that would bode well for the fund as it moves forward. The emerging markets were pretty much close to that target. Mid cap, we're over allocated about, by 1.5%. We're comfortable with that. International, we're right there, over allocated, and large cap, we're right on task there, 25%. So I wouldn't suggest you make any changes to this allocation, and that you're fully allocated small cap, mid cap, which we like. You're fully allocated international, that we think have room to run in reference to this market that has been led by the growth stocks, and been led by in which we've looked at in the previous meetings, growth versus value. And so anyways, I think we're comfortable with this allocation. I don't know if there's any questions or thoughts on that.
On the fire side, any questions?
No.
None.
Elise, any questions?
All right, let's keep moving.
So Tom,
Okay, so yep.
I was going to say, I don't have any
Yes, ma'am.
questions about the allocation, but there's a chart that is in this report that I don't recall seeing before. Do you mind if I run over to that really quick? Unless there was there another part of this report that you wanted, these earlier pages in this? Did you want to call our attention to something?
Well, okay, so I'm on page 64.
Okay.
That's the allocation, and then I wanted to go to the next page and just review where the money's at.
Yep.
So I have a few pages to go through. What chart are you looking at? What page?
Don't worry, I'll wait because it's a little bit further
okay.
on, and it's going through a history of stuff. So Tom, I'll let you keep going. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So on the next page is where your monies are at, and as I'm kind of, this is hard online to do this, but from the last meeting, we had made some changes, and so I want to just, if you look at the small cap equity, we had terminated London company, and we split those assets between the Vanguard small cap value and the Wasatch small cap value. So I'm looking at the fire under the small cap, and you can see that Vanguard's got 1.9 million, and Wasatch has 2,053,993, and then the Fire has a smaller allocation in that small cap 600 ETF, and then on the emerging market, just as a point of reference, we had terminated Lazard, and this is a typo. The description here should be J.P. Morgan Emerging Market. We will correct that. I made Melinda aware of that. But on November 19th, we terminated Lazard and put all those funds into the J.P. Morgan Emerging Market. And then in the fixed income arena area, you have Spare Capital Max Flex, which will be putting that money back into that we from the North Shore, and then Spare Capital and Flex Fixed Income, and then I mentioned Weaver, which is a corporate government fund, and as far as fixed income is concerned. Any questions on that page? So if you go to the next page, it's kind of the overlook as far as performance is concerned. Great year, 14.7% for the last 12 months versus 14%. Last 10 years, you're running at 7.5% versus the custom benchmark of 8.3, but you're certainly at and above your assumed actuarial rate. Since inception, you're right there as well. Over the last 12 months, U.S. equities provided a return of 17.3, better than the benchmark. You've got but internationals, really your choice of mutual funds and where you went with that added significant value versus the benchmark, 18 versus 10. Emerging markets slightly, but big time behind. That was Lazard, and you can see that the last quarter of last year, when we terminated Lazard, moved to J.P. Morgan, you're up 22% versus 19. So you're some catch up there. And fixed income was not lacking, but 7.9 versus 8.9%. Tough market to be a fixed income manager, and but all in all, I think it was a pretty good year. And you can see on the next page, just really. So if you look at Columbia Acorn, they were up 29% year to date. Now that's versus the Russell 2500 growth, which was up 40.4%. But the Columbia up 29.5. If you look at right above there, the S&P 400 mid cap was up 13%. And Columbia Acorn is they internally are a growth manager per se, but I wouldn't say that they go into the weeds of let's say non-earning companies or low quality mid-cap companies. And so I think they're right on task for where they're at as far as the return is concerned. And then looking at American funds down the line, international equity up 25 versus 10. They've done well by the fund for quite a period of time. And your position in Jochum, up 29 versus 7.8 and since inception, and has really added value to the portfolio. Tweedy Brown was tweeting around the bottom of the barrel here, but they're a value manager, and when the market turns, you chose them for one. They hedge the currency, and they're more of a value manager, and so I think they'll show their colors accordingly. American New World added up 25 versus 16, and so really no issues with your managers, the fixed income managers as well, and so that's the performance for the fund. Fairly the same for the police pension fund. As far as the returns are concerned, I don't think we want to go through that, but any questions on? Okay. So if you go to staying in this and you go to a page, it would be 75, page 75 up top there, and it's got the pie chart.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So I think since inception, the fund's running return of 7.19%, and I believe it's a good exercise to look at how dollars come in and out. So back in 2003, you started with 20,281,000 in the pension fund. You've had net contributions going out the door of about $10.7 million, and you had 778,000 of expenses between consultant expense, money manager, along those lines since 2003. You've had income from dividends and interest of 17.8 million. Realized unrealized gains and losses of 26.8 million. So essentially, you've got $44 million of earnings on what was about $20 million of capital, and so ending value $53,391,000. The looking at the bottom right chart, which is risk return analysis, it would suggest that there's really no, you're pretty much right around the benchmark as far as risk, and pretty much right around the benchmark as far as return is concerned. The chart makes it look a little bit larger than it is, but the risk is measured by standard deviation, and 1/10 of 1% separates the blue box versus the mustard colored box, and then on the return side, you're at what is it, 7.19 versus 7.27. So all in all, that's the performance. Is there a chart in there that you wanted to look at, Melinda?
Yeah, if you give me just a moment, I'm just gonna scroll down here really quick. And Tom, it actually has to do with the returns, and it shows it historically over time. So I apologize, I didn't put the page number down. So if you guys could just bear with me. Here it is. So it's on page 93, and it's called Since Inception Ending December 2020. And it's going through month by month what our returns have been. So it shows that we ended with 14.47. But I think one of the things it does for us this past year is we could see, again, when we were meeting early on and having those meetings, what was happening to the funds, and then how the market changed, and how at one point we were down over 10%. When you think about it, we were down further than that, and we ended the year up 14.7. So I know when we were having those earlier meetings that I don't think any of us expected to end the year the way that we have. But Tom, I don't remember seeing this before and how it looks over the months. It's just, to me, it was sort of an interesting chart.
Right. Well, it's always been there, but it's usually at the back of the report. And so by that time, sometimes you get bored. But to follow up, if I may, if you go to page 71, so what you just looked at is the returns. Yep. On page 71, starting on the right side is the actual dollar amount to the fund. So you're down $250,000 in valuation in January. This is on the fire fund. Down $2.3 million in February. Down almost down $5 million in March. Yep. And then the Fed came in and unloaded a ton of money into the economy, and you can see the rebound. And then that in September, we had a pullback, but then it's just roared back here as far as in November and December. So, but it's we think that the value of the actually we can look at this if I could 1 second. If we go to, I'm sorry, is there any questions on this or comments or?
The comments out for me is, thank goodness we ended the year this strong.
Yes. So if we could go to page 107. And on page 107, this follows up from the work that the board has done from the last few meetings, Dave Kinzel looking at this page, looking at the asset class return on the left, in the last 12 months, the return for large cap growth stocks was 40%. But look at the return for U.S. large cap value for the last 1 year was 3%.
Mhm.
And the idea is that we think the market is in the fifth inning of a bull market. We think there's room to run. We think there could be a rain delay. There's always a pullback, and there are some bumps that we're concerned with. But we think the rotation has begun from the growth stocks, the tech stocks, to those companies that are more value oriented. That as the economy picks up, they have the wind at their back. And so I think that's a strategy we began to take, and I think it's evidenced by these particular numbers there. If you go to the next page, you can look at our fundamental value and targets for the S&P 500 for the year end 2021. And what it's suggesting is that the base case for earnings, this is the top right of the page, of 193, and people willing to pay $20.25 for every dollar of those earnings. At our target for year end 2021 is 3,900. Well, that's about a 2% gain for the year. And that doesn't seem that enticing, as well as, the bullish case, which, I personally, and I think our firm is leaning more towards, is that earnings are 202, and 4,200 is the closer target on the S&P 500, which would be about a 9.5% return. And using interest, the market is up. One, because interest rates is low, and they've been kept low by the Fed. And two is that not just the vaccines coming out, but they put $3.5 trillion of money supply in early in the year, another $900 billion, and they're looking for another $2 trillion. The money supply is off the charts. It's the largest we've had in years, which does lend to some concern about inflation, and that's what could derail this market rally. But based upon interest rates, earnings, productivity, technology increasing the bottom line, 2 years return 5,200, and the S&P is not unreasonable, and that's what the models say. But I think that we're fully valued as far as fundamentally concerned right now with the market, and but I think we got a ways to go. So on this next page, 109, I think the comment that I wanted to make here is that the 10-year on page 109, the 10-year Treasury is at 1.12, and these are real small numbers. But a year ago, the beginning of last year, the 10-year bond was at 1.95, and with all the money flooding into the market, that 10-year yield went to 75 basis points, which then that 10-year bond total return was about 11%, because when rates go down, the value of your bonds go up. And all the caution that's out there is that when that turns, if rates go back up to 1.9, then the value in a 12-month period would be down about 9%. And if rates go even further, we're going to see that the long-term assets, which include bonds and also long-term assets, are those growth stocks who need long-term time to produce, to develop what they're developing, whether it's the CRISPR technology or Zoom or along those lines. So this is what could derail is that if inflation rears its ugly head and then rates start to rise to put off inflation. So that's fairly much my report here. And any questions?
Okay, are there any questions for Tom?
I have none.
So I was charged with some continuing education and also following up from our investment policy last week or last meeting. And this is in reference to sustainability investing.
Right, where do you want to move to next, Tom?
132, please. Page 132.
Thanks, Melinda.
Mhm.
So this is a controversial subject. I think, you know, when you invest for portfolios, you know, your goal should be getting the best for your trust for the pension participants, and getting it, you know, based upon earnings, based upon productivity, but the last, and we'll go through it a little bit further, but the last 10 years there's been, you know, this push for sustainability investing, this push for the concern about the environment and social and governmental issues, and so it's becoming a bigger part of what's going on. So, state of Illinois did put forth a requirement that to put sustainability language into your investment policy statements, and and so we did that. And from my perspective, it said, well, how are we gonna if someone says, well, it's in your investment portfolio, how are you going to judge it, or how are you going to at least monitor it? And so Morningstar has a sustainability rating that off the bat we could begin to use. And I'm not going to go through how they calculate it, because I would think that there's value in what they're saying. Their calculations are beyond me as far as not understanding, but wanting to understand it and get at it in reference to at this particular moment. But the explanation and some of the mathematical calculations that they have for their sustainability ratings is included in these pages here up through page 136, 137, 38. And then what we did is we pulled from Morningstar the sustainability rating page on each of the funds that you have, the mutual funds that you have, and the funds that Morningstar would rate. So, for instance, on page 139 is the American Funds Euro Pacific.
Before we jump over there, so really quick, sorry, on page 134, because you're going to see, this is what we're going to look at on those pages. So these little global circles, I'll phrase it that way, is what we're going to see when we go to those next pages. So it's showing us on page 134 what they mean. And I'm now, Tom, I'll head over to 139 so folks can see. There we go.
Okay. So the more circles, the better the score, and then on the right you have the scoring with the lower score number meaning the lower risk. And so they look at, Morningstar looks at Morningstar looks at the sustainability rankings and gives them 5 or 6 different scores, and then with the idea that the lower the score, the lower risk for the company, as far as whether it's pipelines or social issues, what minorities they have, and so it's a coming trend. It's one that is culturally changing, and it's kind of forcing people to take a look at it, right, wrong, or indifferent. So anyway, so you have here the funds that have responded, and one area that I've got a conference call with Morningstar is just to kind of get my arms around the sustainability ranking with those global charts, and then the numbers itself, which don't always seem to be. You could have a true global rating and then the same numerical risk rating on the right side. So I think what your investment policy says is to look at it. It doesn't say you got to know everything. So this is the beginning to look at this, and don't worry. Very shortly, you won't have to worry about it anymore when the big guys take the funds. So, but meanwhile, we're doing what they've asked us to do, so on page 146 is a charts that go into 146 to 159, investing with impact, and it gives some background to what this is about, and also this is part of your continuing education, and I think this is, I don't know, worth 2 hours of CE, don't you think so, Melinda? What? No.
Tom, I think we're getting closer and closer every moment.
Okay. So, on page 147, is the this idea, what is investing with impact? And they look at, this is our firm. This is from Morgan Stanley, who has created a whole department for investing with impact and sustainability. And we've monitor mutual funds and managers. There's 150 different mutual funds and managers that we monitor and say that they fit the category of sustainability investment. I'm saying this not to promote Morgan Stanley. I'm saying it because, there's push demand on this type of product, and it is what it is. And so we can only look at what's happening in the marketplace with the new regime. You've got some of these energy stocks. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Plug, P-L-U-G, but just look at the chart. And this is this hydrogen electric energy that with the new administration, the stock's up from 5 to 65. And so right, wrong, or indifferent, a lot of these solar stocks went up based upon the previous administration or Obama administration, but and some of them went belly up. But so, when you look at sustainability investments, you have your financial goals and then impact goals, positive social and or environmental outcomes driven by values and mission, and that creates what they consider investing with impact. And, the next page looks at from a niche to mainstream, and back in 1898, the Quakers Friends Fiduciary Corporation, they founded and adopted a policy of no weapons, alcohol, tobacco investment policy. I know that Washington Mutual Fund by American Funds is not it's a socially investing mutual fund, but they don't allow tobacco, guns along those lines. And Calvert Mutual Funds was a firm 50 years ago, theirs were a religious kind of approach to social investing. And then the Pax World Balance Fund in 1971 was the first ethical investment vehicle. In 1973, 625 billion investments were screened to exclude. So this South Africa, Sudan. You all know about the Sudan and South African investments for government funds were a big deal, and then I'm somewhat skeptical sometimes and a critic, but in 2006 the UN supported Principles for Responsible Investment, PRI. So these guys like to get these abbreviations, PRI for ESG, but they're creating a whole structure for this and a whole hoops to jump through. And if if you buy into the Principles for Responsible Investment, they will monitor you, and if you don't follow, won't give you that code that like a CFA, or they won't give you that achievement or certification. And Rockefeller Foundation in 2007, and they had an impact investing initiative, and then Morgan Stanley saw the opportunity. They formed a global sustainable finance to integrate this across core business. And then in 2015, the Department of Labor said, you can, buy for sustainability, and you can invest, with all things being equal, in sustainability investments. And then Morgan Stanley, that's just there because this is what I was able to grab from within that group there, which we have a whole department now. And then in 2020, they estimate 17 trillion, or $1 in $3 invested in the U.S. uses socially responsible investment strategies. That's a big number. I can't, I should get the fact finders on that. I don't, but that's a big number. And there is the sustainability index. I'm just looking at it. Okay, so KDI. I believe it's KDI is a symbol for MSCI sustainable. I'll come to that. And so you have people buying into to this type of investment. And if you go to page 149, and this speaks to individuals interested in sustainability investment, entrepreneurs, foundations, non-for-profits. Well, they all have some type of, you can lean towards some type of sustainability investing if you want. If that's, and so essentially what, if this is to be a long-term program, you would have the board would sit just like the investment policy and create what the sustainability policy would be. And for right now, the policy is to look at in the funds you have in the managers, which we're going to go to each of your managers, SKBA and Weaver, and ask them if they have any sustainability statement or principles that they work off of, and we'll report to the board with that. But that's how you're handling it now. And I would jump to page 151, and again, it's titled Proof in the Performance. It's looking at the performance of the MSCI KLD 400 Social Index. I'm sorry, KLD. I think I'm just checking it. Yeah, it's the symbol is D as in David, S as in Sam, I as in Ignatius. That's the symbol for that fund. So I just want to get the quote, and I don't know if I can get back to where we're at here. On the next page is the return of the ESG funds. It's pretty much fairly matched the market, and so it's not necessarily giving something up is what they're saying here, and it would warrant further investigation along those lines. And on the next page, titled, and I'm off the screen here. Let's see here. Hang on a second. I lost my chart here, but investing with impact is not a one-size-fits-all. So on this page, it speaks to restriction screening, and just say restrict. If one was to restrict guns, you could put a screen in there, and that would for mutual funds or separate account managers, and then environmental, social governance, thematic exposure. You might be related to energy is a big one. You know, the renewable energy, affordable housing, faith-based values are part of where people say, you know, they have sustainability investing or investing with impact. You know, they might, you know, on the next page speaks to how they whether it's Morgan Stanley or Morningstar or other screeners would look at how ESG data informs the decision. So they'd look at environmental, social, and governance. So governance might be just ethical practices. Do they have strong ethics, anti-corruption record, financial transparency, you know, the ownership, you know, their board of directors, you know, diversity in leadership. You know, yeah, I don't know how this really plays into it. There's an article, editorial by Arthur Levitt, Security Exchange Commission president or commissioner, about this in the Wall Street today. And and that's related to NASDAQ wants to require that anybody listed on the NASDAQ exchange, the over-the-counter exchange, their board would have to have a certain amount of transgender, of color, you know, maybe a couple other items, and you know, his thought, you know, that you know, that if diversity was that product, not if the diversity was the essence for productivity, every corporation would do it. And so it's really about, you know, them choosing the right person for that position. But needless to say, it's people are beginning to look at this, and so there's a whole there's a whole process to come up with a policy for sustainability investing, and the future is bright. And that's pretty much what I have. I think that the information provided, you know, is for the board to review, and if there's a pursuit, which I don't think is going to be necessary based upon where your control of your investments will be in 12 months. But what I wanted to do is get some information and some general oversight about this into your hands, since we just changed your investment policy, and that it would be a good continuing education that would be worth at least 4 hours. I'm sorry, 4? Did I say that? 2. So, all right.
Tom,
Yes.
Thank you, and thanks for taking the time. I think the discussion of training and items that qualify for that we'll probably talk about a little bit more, and it definitely informed what Tom was sharing with us today, so that we could utilize the discussion he just had with us to qualify for training. So before we get off this topic, and the other really good thing about this is we were just trying to understand why we were including this sort of language in our investment policy. So I think Tom did a good job of laying out not only the history behind this, but that it is actually showing up in ratings of the various investment vehicles that we have out there, so that we can see it and start to understand more what it means. So before we move on, does anyone have any other questions for Tom on this topic?
I have a question, Tom. It looks like the Morgan Stanley information is part of a much bigger deck, like another 20 or so pages.
Mm-hmm.
What are those 20 pages? Is it relevant or material? Do we need them, or is it not?
No, Chris, the other pages would be, when I say self-serving, it would be more related to what Morgan Stanley's doing in that space.
Okay.
That is, it's not, would not be as general educational than when I cherry picked these charts the best I could. That might be more informational than, let's say, marketing.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I saw page number, and then it stopped, and I was like, All right, any other questions for Tom on this? Okay, seeing none, Tom, is there anything else you have?
No, I think that I just what I did on your investment report. It shows Public Act 100-0542.
Yeah.
And I think that it's in the package on page 160, 161.
Correct.
Okay. And that's this comes from the Department of Insurance. They send it to us, and we have to fill out, and it's asking us how many investment manager searches have you done, how many with minorities, and we have to give them exact count. So this kind of gets back to one, Big Brother. Two is use of our time, but three is that this is what they're looking at that, and there's this demand pull type of demand push type of issue with this sustainability, and so it's something to keep an eye on, and that's all I have. So I don't know if there's any questions on that report.
No, thanks for sending it so that we know that we've actually received it and you complied.
Yes, I'm compliant.
All right, so I think that concludes Tom's report.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, let's keep moving. Next is conference seminar training discussion and approval. We've got a number of documents from Carolyn's firm and from Rick Reamer's firm. Melinda, do you have anything to add?
I think what I would like us to think about here, and I was just speaking to it, is how we are noting in our minutes our training and what we're accomplishing. So I think in the past we have wanted to recognize that we've had a lot of material in our packet. It takes a lot of time to get through it and digest it. There's a lot of educating that happens as you go through that material. And I think we have taken the position before in the past that counts as training time. What is laid out in starting on page 162 in the information that we got from Carolyn's firm is reading of material is not considered valid training. And I also think that we are seeing this in the results from the audit that IDOI has done on both fire and as police is seeing their results as well. So what Tom just did for us right now when we looked at sustainability, I think in our minutes from this meeting, that's the area that would really qualify for training, because we had somebody who is quote unquote an expert in this area educating us about a particular topic. The act of us reading through material is no longer to be included in our training hours anymore. So does anyone have any questions about that right now? This is a really good memo to read. It is going to help you understand some of the results that we're getting back from the Department of Insurance audit, and it's going to help inform us going forward about what we need to be doing to satisfy our training requirements.
So, hey, Melinda, so if you flip to page 162, I just have a question for you.
Yeah.
That caught my attention. I don't remember, but it says here somewhere, right? Let me see, with a picture of the fire. I'm just trying to match up with my notes here.
Yeah.
It says here that some of us might be exempt if we started serving prior to August 13th, 2009. Did I read that right?
You're not exempt for the continuing education. I think they're talking about the
Initial training.
Yes.
Oh, the initial training. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wait, past prior to 13. Wait, original affected.
Because you are correct, there is a discussion about that, and if you were to go off the board and come back on again, trying to see if I can find it really quick without,
Oh, so it does say certification training. Yep. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So really, this section here, how much annual training must pension fund trustees complete? This is an area that if you could take some time and make sure you've read that, and that I'm going to suggest we do a better job in our minutes of showing when folks are are getting the required training and how we're complying with this. Does anyone have any questions about it right now?
I guess, Melinda, like, for example, every January, I would put in like the totals for the previous year.
Yeah.
So for example, this in 2020, we had 29 hours of that we classified as training.
Right.
Do we want to try to adjust that based
Yes.
on this ruling from
Yeah,
this?
I think, Pat, you would probably agree after you read through this, you're going to realize that how we were categorizing training is not considered acceptable to IDOI. Plus, the comments that they're making in our audits, they're also letting us know that they really training for them is with, it's not just reading of material. So I think the amount of hours that we would have maybe thought in the past were sufficient are not.
So, Lynn, let me ask you a dumb question. So, what happens if we don't comply? I mean, they're taking the funds anyhow. I'm like, suppose I just say, you know what, I'm not going to do the training. I mean,
So they actually talk about that in here.
They do.
Yep,
okay, I didn't get that far.
that's okay.
Hold on.
So where they talk here, are there consequences for failing to obtain required? And really what they're trying to tell you is, my takeaway is twofold. Number one, if you haven't done it, you need to start complying and get your training in. And the board could use it as a reason to remove you from the board because you're not keeping up with your duties, is really what it's telling us. Now, remember, in some of this training, as folks in their professional life are doing other things, there are just general areas that we need to be getting our training, and we don't all have to do it together. So if folks, for example, today I had a session and it was led by one of the heads of the Federal Reserve, and he was given a presentation as part of a statewide financial forecast forum that's going on. That's something that I could use as training because it is talking about the economy and how things are performing. So we didn't all do that together, but that's now a certification that I would use to try to help show the training that I need to get done for the year. So I, as you're going through different things, you can have any sort of ethics training, some other legal issues that are going on. I think they gave us the categories. It's on the second page of this. Let me see, it's right around here. All right, so long as coursework involves ethics, fiduciary duty, investment issues, or other curriculum the respective pension board establishes as being important. So we know that there are pension organizations and the organizations that we belong to that actually have classes that you can attend. So that is a way for us to achieve it. But I'm also letting folks know that in the course of other things that you're doing, you already might be obtaining some of this training. And if you can start providing some of the proof from that, that would actually be very helpful.
Belinda, I have a question then. If I meet with my financial advisor, can we discuss some of those things? Does that fall under the training category?
I don't think that that's going to, because it really does. I think what they're telling us here is that it's not just a one-on-one discussion. Okay. Because as you might imagine, you can take that and go down a rabbit hole with it and say, well, I was just meeting with somebody who is an expert and we were having a beer together and he started telling me about the market. Is that qualify as training? I think if we step back, it really is looking for something a little bit more structured for it to qualify for training. So I would, if you had to, I would lean towards that than maybe kind of what you were suggesting here, Marty. Not that wouldn't be a good training session for you or any of us, but I don't think that's going to qualify.
Okay.
Unless you can get them to make a certificate on a cocktail napkin.
I could probably do that.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions about this? If you could make sure that you spend some time. It's 1, 2, 3. It's like a 3.5, 4-page memo. This would really help answer some of the questions that we've had before in the past about training. And it is going to inform us going forward about what we can include as legitimate training. So for 2020, when we go to file our IDOI reports, I'm going to need folks to really look into training that you had that qualifies under this memo. And if you can supply that to the respective secretaries of the board, I'm going to need that for the filing, the annual filing that we do. So it's not to say that some of the discussions and quote unquote training that we had during the course of the year in these quarterly meetings is not going to be sufficient. It's just we were giving ourselves a longer period of time of saying that it was training for accounting for what we were doing on our own to read the material to be ready for the meeting. That's not going to cut it. It is the discussions that we're having during the meeting. There could be components of that that would actually be sufficient for the training. So when Tom is helping us out with certificates during these meetings, it is going to be much more pointed than what we would have done before in the past.
So along those lines, when we redid the investment policy and the board rules with Carolyn and Tom at our last meeting, could that be training?
You know, so I would think that we could probably get Carolyn to opine on that, but I actually think those are because, right, we were dealing with experts in those areas and they were educating us about what was going on. So I do think that those could be captured as part of the training that was happening during the course of our meetings. Yes.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like it falls underneath these
Right.
categories that we're talking about here, especially like Carolyn's was our fiduciary duties. That's why we were putting the rules together. The discussion with Tom over the investment policy, he was educating us about state statute and changes that we needed to make. And we talked about asset allocation and why we made some other few tweaks that we did here and there. And it really then led to the larger discussion that we had at today's meeting. It is what caused the discussion that we had today. So I think that would be a valid argument to make. But I can't tell you once we get audited by the IDOI again, if they would decide that that's sufficient. I couldn't tell you. Yes, Tom.
So I should provide a certificate for today's session?
Yes, please.
And then what about the investment policy session?
Please, yes.
Okay. And so I have one other question. Michael Wilson is the chief investment officer at Morgan Stanley, and every 2 weeks or so, there's a session where he goes, he provides input into the market. It's about 30 minutes. If it was available to the trustees, they could watch it, they could go and log on. But then how do they get a certificate? I mean, he doesn't provide a certificate. How could that count? And how would that, would they report that, and would that be helpful?
I think, Tom, you're raising an issue that could come up, because to me that sounds like that would fall under the training that we have here. But our problem is, how would we actually be able to prove out that somebody actually did it? And as we look here,
Melinda,
yeah,
when I was talking to Brian, our attorney, on the training thing,
yeah,
he said, obviously Illinois Department wants a certificate. That's their best.
yep.
But if you can't get one, he's had success where he, like, say I went to XYZ, like Jeff Kinzel gave me a list of stuff of his training that he did in 2020. And he says, if they challenge it, we can say, hey, I'll have, the trustee will sign an affidavit that he's attended these trainings, and that sometimes they'll take.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to that. Morgan Stanley has, I think quarterly, the Bearing Group gives talks on the economy and different type of things that I sit in on. It's you can call in and listen to. It sounds like what Tom was talking about.
Right.
If you could maybe start keeping a log of that then,
Yeah,
and then
kinda
maybe
keep
to
track of
Pat's
it.
point, yep, that at the end of the year that you just kind of make a statement that here's a log of all these, and I am attesting that I actually did in fact sit in on these. And I'm going to guess it's going to, you know, there's nothing that says you only have to have 8 hours, right? It's just the minimum that we have to have. So I think the more of that, if you're really doing that in the course of your normal working stance, I think it's great to capture that. So that way we can add that to the training that we're going to say that you're keeping up with. That would be great.
And then we could do the 8-hour online course through, was it IPPFA?
Yes.
They have like 2 right now, 2 8 hours, one for fall of 2020 and something else, spring. But that'll cost us money. I think that's, I don't know. I'd have to see what they cost.
You're right, there is a cost to it. And then we know that if folks were doing their Open Meetings Act and their FOIA training, again, that also counts towards the time you get a certification out of that. And it does talk about, you know, that's part of what the funds need to do. If we need to pay for the training so that folks can stay in compliance, then we're supposed to be doing that.
And right now, there is no dates listed for IPPFA's regional seminar.
Okay. The other thing is, as part of this, and I think, again, it's a material that we have here later on, is the training that we have to sit through, that folks need to attend in regards to the consolidation. On the fire side, there was certifications provided, and it's a webinar that you sit in on, and there was no fee being charged for it. With the police, I think it is, their certification requirement is different. And Pat, do you want to just take a moment now to talk about what you've done and how you've set things up right now?
So I registered all the 5 trustees from the police. So you guys should have all gotten emails. How to set up an account, and then it's a 4-hour class that you'll go through, and then once you complete it, I think at the end you'll get a certificate. You have 30 days once you logged into it to complete it, and the cost was $125 per trustee.
Okay. And then sorry.
It's through that, because ours is different. We had to do it through a college. It's through, I think, Northern Illinois University.
Yes.
So,
David and Jason, were you guys able to complete the fire training? Because I know Chris did and I did, and I know Mark has reached out. He might have completed one of the sessions. I'm not sure yet, but he is going to try. Have you guys been able to complete the 4-hour training?
Yes.
Great. Did you guys get your certifications?
I believe I did. I'll check my email. I think I have them. I believe I uploaded them.
Okay. I know there's kind of a lag. It took them a while to get the certification out.
I'll check right now, see what I can find.
Okay.
I'll touch you later.
Great. And I'm sorry, Jason, I don't know if I heard.
Yeah, same thing. I think I received the certification on the 29th. I'll have to go through and check that again.
Okay. Yeah, don't be surprised. Like I said, there seemed to be a couple weeks lag to get after you sat through each individual one. It took a while for the certifications to come through. So if you can make sure that you have those, and again, so that we have them ready so that we can supply that when we do our annual filing this year, that would be helpful.
Okay, Melinda, anything else on training?
I don't think so, not at this point.
do we want to adjust our hours for the 2020?
I don't know that we can without going back and looking at all the minutes.
I mean, I know the hours, but do we?
So I know the hours that we set in our minutes. I think what I've asked Tom to do in light of all this is that I would work with him on going through the minutes, and when he produces certifications for us, that we would look to see really when the amount of time that is surrounding the manager review, and was there another item that we covered during that meeting, that because it has to be within our meeting itself to get the training. So I'll work with Tom on those certifications, but I can guarantee you, Pat, it won't be anything near the numbers that we would cite in our minutes.
Right.
Yeah, I figured probably like you did in January 23rd, we did 4 hours. You figure maybe a half hour, an hour.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a half hour to an hour, probably every meeting.
Yep.
Based on the new criteria, or at least their criteria.
Yes.
So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 times 0.5. It'd be either 9 hours or 4.5 hours for 2020.
Probably somewhere in that range, based on, Melinda and Tom going back and looking at minutes, looking at the agendas and seeing what the topics were. Because again, if we are talking about investments, through the pandemic, we did a lot of talking, and that leads to our fiduciary duty about what's the best way to operate for the fund, and Tom advising us of how to do that.
Mm-hmm. So we'll go back and we'll see what seems to make sense under these guidelines now as we understand them. And then, like I said, if there's other training that folks have done that can fall into the categories that we just talked about, if you could please provide that, that would be helpful. So Chris, you ready to go on to the next item then?
I am. So if we could go to page 172 for fire, it's review and approval of the engagement letter with Carolyn's law firm. Melinda, could I get a motion to approve?
So approve. And I think, Chris, do you want to note that the fees have not changed?
Well, hold on. I just want to get a motion and a second by Jason, and then discussion back to you, Melinda, to make that point.
Okay. So as Carolyn provided the letter, the hourly fees are not changing from our last contract with them.
Okay, any further discussion, Dave or Jason?
Is this the motion to approve
the engagement letter?
Okay. No discussion.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, Dave, can you call roll on this?
Mr. Canning.
Aye.
Ms. Malloy.
Aye.
Mr. Weglars.
Aye.
Mr. Krajewski. Aye.
Okay, and so that motion carries over to police for disability matter.
Wait, can I stop you for a second? So Chris, can you do me a favor when you get a chance, the PDF of this, can you sign it and date it and then send it over to me so I can get that over to her?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
Dave, on disability matter.
Yeah, where am I here?
Page 7, Dave, of our cheat sheet.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking. Oh, I'm on page 6. No wonder. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we just need to make a motion to approve the request from Attorney Reamer to schedule an annual evaluation for disability pension for Mr. Sam Walker. So can we make a motion for that?
Collins motions.
Okay, second, please.
Second, Kinzel.
Okay, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Farina,
Yes.
Mr. Kinzel,
Aye.
Mr. Collins, aye. Mr. Paulson.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carried approving request for Attorney Reamer to schedule the annual evaluation for disability pension for Mr. Sam Walker.
Okay, back to fire. On page 175 of the packet, is the information related to the annual examination of Lance Burns. According to Dr. Samo, Lance is still disabled and unable to perform firefighting duties. The materials are in your packet. And do I need a motion, Melinda, to direct Carolyn to start the 2021 process?
Yeah, and I would think, Chris, we probably have two motions. One is to accept this report and place it on file, and then the second would be to start the process again for 2021.
Okay, with that being said, then Melinda, why don't you make the first motion?
I move that we accept the results of the 2020 examination of Lance Burns as still being disabled.
Okay, and second by Jason. Dave, can you call roll?
And Dave, if you're there, you're muted.
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Ms. Malloy,
Aye.
Mr. Weglars,
Aye.
Mr. Krajewski, aye.
Okay, so that motion's approved. Second motion, Melinda?
That we engage with Carolyn's firm to have her start the process again for Lance Burns to be evaluated in 2021.
And Jason with the second. Dave, could you call roll?
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Ms. Malloy,
Aye.
Mr. Weglars,
Aye.
Mr. Krajewski.
Okay, and so the motion carries. Okay, next, investment policy. Carolyn, I'm not Carolyn, Melinda.
I think we need to probably start with police, but what I asked Tom to do, since at our last meeting, there was changes that were being proposed. We only had a draft of the police one, so he has given us the final copy, one for police, one for fire. I think what we need to do is take action to adopt these, and then there are signatures that need to be accomplished, and then we need to file these with the Department of Insurance.
Okay, so Tom, do you want to run through these?
Okay, so I'm off the screen here, but let me get back on.
Tom, are you on an L platform?
That's not me.
That's
not
me. Sorry, then it wasn't muted.
Okay. 1 second. Let me get back on to the investment policy.
It's on page 180, Tom.
Yeah, but I'm off my
Gotcha.
system went down, timed out, so I got to go back into this. And 1 second. Why don't maybe just go to the next subject, and I'll circle right back up when it's like.
Well, I tell you what, Tom, can I make this suggestion? Can you confirm that the policies that we have in front of them that you sent over are simply the final versions from what we discussed and asked to have done from our last meeting?
Most definitely. So it's the same as was provided at the last meeting, and I thought the discussion today was to more in reference to the sustainability section.
Yep.
That was new, and so yeah, it's just really the final copy of what we talked about at the last meeting.
Yep. And you also then provided fires as well, so that we could really see the fire policy. And then you also included the signature pages for each ones that need to be completed.
Right.
Yep. So I think when we're talking about the date of the statement of our investment policy, I know that we had talked about these at our October meeting, but I think we probably would use today's meeting date as the date that we're officially doing the adoption of this final clean version.
I would agree.
I'm fine with that, Melinda. Was it the board rules or was it the investment policy that had to be done by 12/31/20?
That's a really good point, because as you're saying that, Chris, and as I'm looking at what I have up on the screen, it's showing that this is as of October 2020. I think this we had to have the sustainability in there before the end of the year. I think you're correct, Chris. So So at least then really is our path that we're at least looking at the clean version. We have the signature pages and we can get that done and get it filed then.
Yep.
Okay. And what I'm going to ask for folks to do is we can decide who's going to, so both the president and the secretary have to sign as well as the other trustees. Somebody needs to start the PDF and then try to use blue pen and scan it in then and send it to the next person. So that way I can get the copy that way instead of bringing people into the hall to sign a live page. I think that would be the best way to handle this.
Okay, Melinda, since I'm for police, I'll print it out if I can get it on. Yeah, I can print it out and sign it and send it to Pat.
Great. And if we keep doing that, then I'll have all of the signatures in one spot. And then I get that final page, then we could use that then for the filing that we need to do with the Department of Insurance.
All right, Jeff and Marty, I'll just swing by your guys' house. If you're good with it.
I mean, Pat, if that's easier for you, you can swing by my house too if you want. But
Whatever's easier for you guys, because you're doing us the fave.
I mean, it's easier for me to print it and send it to you, so I'll just do that.
Okay, well, Melinda, do we want a motion to ratify this?
Yeah,
Right.
I think that sounds like the best thing to do, don't you?
Probably ratify it nunc-pro-tunc to whatever date is in the bottom right-hand corner.
Would have been the October meeting, right?
You are correct. It would have been our October meeting. Yes.
All right, well then, Melinda, why don't you make a motion?
Oh, jeez. Hey, can I throw something in there, Melinda and Chris?
Yep.
Sure.
So you're gonna sign it as of what date?
The October meeting.
Okay, so then you're supposed to have this investor policy, I thought, is it 30 days after signature? You're gonna get dinged for that? I don't know. I'm trying to think about that. Jesus.
Well,
Right, Melinda?
yes, it is. You know, it is possible, but I think during a pandemic and what it's taken us to sort of get this,
Okay.
Melinda, why wouldn't we just date it as of today? I mean, we had to include this other thing, and we had a board meeting, like you said, with the pandemic. I mean, I feel more comfortable just dating it and let them deal with it.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
I think
they're
no,
going to take
to your
us for
point,
being
all right,
late.
so then we
I mean,
leave the October 2020 because that's on this sheet. So it kind of shows that that's when we were discussing it. Our minutes said that we were approving the changes. It's just, this is now when we have the actual final hard copy to be able to date it now and sign it. And here's the thing, to Tom's point, depending on interpretation, we're going to get slammed one way or the other on this.
Yeah, but if I'm signing it, right, so we're gonna get
Yep.
slammed one way or the other. I'm signing it today. I'm not entirely comfortable backdating it and signing it.
I'm fine with it. Yep.
It is what it is.
Yep.
And I would suspect they'll be more able to see the date and when it was delivered than they would be to look into the fund, into the policy and see the sustainability language. But, you know,
Right.
that's
Right.
just me. I'm a city kid.
Okay. All right. So what we're asking to do right now. So the motion is that we accept the final versions that we have in front of us in this packet. We will get the necessary signatures done, and then we will make our filing with the Department of Insurance. If we can get this moved quickly, we need to, so that way we're filing it within 30 days of the date that we have on here. That's my motion.
I second.
Is it to accept the final versions of the investment policy? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am. And instructing the trustees to complete the signature of the policy so that we can file it with the Department of Insurance.
All right, well, it's been moved and seconded. Dave, can you call roll?
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Ms. Malloy,
Aye.
Mr. Weglars,
Aye.
Mr. Rajewski. Aye.
Okay, please.
Okay, yeah, can we make a motion to approve the new Wilmette Police Pension Fund investment policy as depicted on, what page is that? In the packet there, I'm not sure what page that is.
Page 180.
Page 180, with the inclusion of the new sustainability information or policy.
Motion, Kinzel.
Second, please.
I'll
Collins,
second.
Okay, Colin, second. We do a roll call, Pat?
Farina?
Farina's an aye.
Mr. Kinzel,
Kinzel, aye.
Mr. Collins, aye. Mr. Paulson.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carried approving the Wilmette Police Pension Funds investment policy.
Okay, next item on the agenda is fire board rules.
Could I interject? This is Tom McShane. May I be excused? I have a 5:30 meeting with Lake Bluff, unless there's anything else for me.
Oh, thank you very much, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Tom.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Tom.
Bye-bye.
Aye, Tom.
Melinda, you want to call up the fire board rules?
I have them up. It's on page 208.
Okay, and so this is the revised and final version, incorporating all the changes that Carolyn made. Is there anything we need to go over, Melinda?
No, I think all the changes were made. What we didn't do in the packet of material is, as she has set it up, it's set up as a resolution. So since this is our first one of the year, I think we should be numbering it 2021-R-1.
Correct. Okay,
So
so
Carolyn has incorporated all of the changes that we requested based on the meeting that we had in November.
all right, so do you want me to write in 2021-R-1, sign it and send it to you?
Please.
Okay. All right, well,
And
first of
then-
all,
Sorry, and then Dave, you'll do that on this page that I have up, the secretary's certificate. You'll do the same thing with the resolution number.
Sorry, I'm doing the notes. What did you say with the resolution number?
Sure, if you look on page 208, the one that I have up here, see how it says resolution number? You'll put in 2021-R-1.
Okay.
You'll need to sign this page.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
okay, so we need a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Jason, second. Dave, can you call a roll?
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Ms. Malloy,
Aye.
Mr. Weblars,
Aye.
Mr. Rajewski. Aye.
Okay, so that resolution passes.
The next item, Chris, is item G.
Hold on one second. I'm trying to print out these things so I can sign them and send them to you tonight.
Okay.
Item G, we don't have anything right now, so let's just keep that on the table. And then item H. You want to go over the findings, Melinda?
Sure. So included in the packet is the final report that we have of the examination completed by the Department of Insurance for the 10-year period that's noted in the material that's in front of you. There were some findings. The pension board did respond back. They did make some adjustments. On the advice of our counsel, I move that we accept and place these on file.
Move, Jason, second. Any discussion?
I think that the only discussion that we need to have, and we've been having some of that during the course of this, is as we are learning from the findings that are in here, it's going to probably cause us to make some adjustments in terms of what we're doing, as will our rules. So those are things that I don't know that we want to have a larger discussion about them right now, but even the minutes. I know the last time that Dave put the minutes together, we know now that there's a lot more information that needs to be contained in those minutes, that we cannot rely or reference the material that's in the packet. It actually has to be listed in the minutes. The minutes need to be signed. We've already talked about training. That was one of the other big items that had come up. I think those are some of the thoughts that the trustees should take away from when they look at the results of the examination. Are there any questions?
I don't have any. It's been moved and seconded. Dave, please call a roll.
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Ms. Malloy,
Aye.
Mr. Wetlars,
Aye.
Mr. Krajewski, aye.
Is there any new, old, or unfinished business?
Yes, I think Pat has some.
Well, I think police might have to table their review, their semi-annual review first,
Okay.
because we weren't tabled.
Okay.
All right, so what do we do? Do I need a motion for that?
I'll make I'll motion that we table review of the closed executive session minutes to determine what needs to remain confidential to the next meeting.
Okay, I'll first that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Farina's and I.
Kinzel, aye.
Collins and I.
Paulson's and I.
And the motion to table the executive session discussion to remain confidential has been tabled. Do we have to discuss the our audit from the state?
We can, as new business, yeah, we just, on the 13th, they sent us our audit. It's been turned over to the attorney to draft responses similar to what the fire. Not all the notes or whatever that findings are the same as fire. There's some different. So we'll work with them to do a response. He's asked for an extension. You can get a 14-day extension. The attorney's asking to extend it out to our next April meeting. Says, might as well ask. All I can say is no, and then maybe negotiate something in between, or 14 days at minimum.
Okay.
I will be reaching out to the trustees for training certificates or that documents and maybe some other information.
Okay. Hey, Pat, didn't it say in the recommendation that we should appoint assistant secretary?
We do. That's one of his things that every time we vote, we do offices. There's an assistant secretary, and it's been in the minutes. So I'll just provide those minutes to the attorney, and he'll say, you're wrong on your finding.
Okay.
So the finding on that, Dave, was they make mention that they could see it in the minutes, but that when the Department of Insurance filing occurred and all the trustees are listed, there was not one of them named specifically as the assistant secretary.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's what their issue was on that. I'd just like to add to that, that Tom, I have sent to him the the findings that surround items that he would have information on, and he has already turned that back around to me today. So I will be forwarding that on to Pat to send to the attorney. So again, I think in some of these cases, not unlike what the fire discovered, is that as we were able to either clarify or provide more information, it allowed them to cull down the number of filings that they initially sent to us. So I think that's the hope that we're gonna have here. And
Okay.
because I didn't move, my lights shut off again. There we go. Turned it back on. That's how long the meeting's going, folks. If there's no other discussion on that, I wanted to call your attention to some other material that was in the packet. it would, I think, be beneficial if you could also focus on the information that is around page 307. I had raised this item earlier. This is from Carolyn's firm. She gave a brief discussion of both the fire and then the police pension funds and sort of where they're at in the consolidation process. So this is where for fire, there's even in the training that we sat through, there has been some statement on the part of the new board as it has been formed that they are looking to potentially have our investments combined by this summer. So that's the target that they've set for themselves. They realize that that's an aggressive target, but that's what I was mentioning before, that is something that as we have subsequent meetings, this as we're getting more information, that is going to be an item that we'll be dealing with on the police side. In that discussion, in that same paragraph, there's not a date that's been given yet, but they are again insinuating that they want to get this accomplished before 2022. They want to actually try to combine these investments in 2021. So I'm just giving you a heads up of the information that's out there. And I think there was also some material later on in the packet, starting on page 314. There were 2 articles that were in the IML, the Illinois Municipal League magazine, that just came out, again, giving more background information on the consolidation and where things are at. So as we've talked about those in past meetings, there's a good summary of where the consolidation process is at for both of those funds. So that starts on page 314. So if you have a moment, that would be good information to familiarize yourself with as well. And that's all I have.
Our fund, consolidation fund, is having 3 meetings tomorrow.
Okay.
So they're moving quickly.
And that's what earlier on in that piece that we have from Carolyn's, it seems to let us know that, so they didn't have a date, but it kind of says they're going to start moving on this fairly quickly. The fire one has actually set a goal right now of July of 2021.
All right, any other new, old, or unfinished business? Okay, hearing none. Melinda, do you want to make a motion to adjourn fire?
So moved.
Jason, second. Dave, call roll, please.
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Ms. Malloy,
Aye.
Mr. Weblars,
Aye.
Mr. Gajewski, aye.
Okay, so fire stands adjourned. Police?
Any other unfinished business, Pat?
No.
Okay, then can we make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Motion.
Okay, that was a first from Pat, a second from Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Green is an aye.
Aye.
All right.
Yeah, good,
The
great.
motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Bye.